Just start today with the news, obviously, that Peter will be stepping down in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's had a huge influence, over a lot of people here, positive influence, huge influence in a positive way for the club over the 17-year reign. I think he's been brilliant to work for. You've had our fallouts, over the piece, but he's had a huge positive influence on my career and many others, and he's a huge loss. Every decision he made, he thought was best for the club going forward. He was devoted to the club, and I think he'll be a huge miss.
Yeah, how much, I suppose, do you owe to him? Obviously, brought you back twice, manager. You were there as a player.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it yesterday. I was still playing when he came back. Player, coach, manager. So we've been through a lot together, and he, as well as other managers, Ronnie, Tony, Brendan. So, I mean, his success, and the success the club have had during his reign is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm sad to see him go, but 17 years is a huge amount of time for a job as pressured as that.
Does it come to a point that there has to be a change? Obviously, Dominic will come in the summer. Does it feel like a kind of natural change now? You talked about it being 17 years.
Well, we've spoken about it, even in the second spell coming back, this time last year and maybe even further back than that. So this has been something obviously in his mind, that this transition, hopefully will be seamless. Dominic is very well thought of, and Peter's had a hand in bringing Dominic to the club. So obviously we wish him every success when he does step in. But as far as, Peter's concerned, he's, he'd be a big loss to everyone at the football club.
Neil, do you feel that when people look at the overall tenure of the time he's been in charge, that there will be a greater appreciation for all the things that have happened at this club, rather than maybe focusing on perhaps the last 6 months of the last year, when fans look at it in the bigger picture?
Maybe. I can't speak for fans and how they perceive, other people's sort of record at the club. What I do know is that in a very high pressurised job, he fought a lot of battles for the club, won a lot of battles for the club, and like I say, on and off the field, the club has made enormous strides in the last 17 years.
Scott described him as, at times, he can be a bit of a hard businessman, and you said yourself there that you've had a few fallouts with him over the years. But as you said, is it important that every decision he's made has been in the best interest of the club, even though some people might not think that? Yeah,
I mean, he knew he had to make decisions that wouldn't be popular, but the overriding sort of theory behind that was the best thing for the club going forward at all times. So there's no question for me, he always put the club first, whether it be popular with people or not. And that's the strength of the man. He's a very, very strong leader, and a really good presence and influence on a lot of people around the club.
Have you spoken at all to Dominic, and what are you, if any, going to have dialogue with him at all ahead of his arrival?
I haven't had dialogue with him. Only became aware of it this morning myself. So maybe in time, over the next few months, I'll get to meet him or get to talk to him. But he goes without saying, he has everybody's best wishes. Going forward, it's obviously a new environment for him, but his record is fantastic, and he's obviously very well thought of by the board and Dermot and Peter.
You mentioned there, Neil, about Dominic coming in, but just how big a job is it that he's having to replace Peter, but the job itself, which is probably the most high-profile job in Scottish sporting administration, he's got a tough gig ahead of him as well.
Yeah, but I think it's an exciting new chapter for him. I think it's a great challenge for him, and he'll get huge amounts of support from people at the club. So, he's got a really good resume in Scottish rugby, so he knows how sports administration works. This is probably a different challenge, as you say, for him. Very high profile, but I'm sure one that he's looking very much forward to. He's been a huge supporter of the club himself on a personal level for the last 20, 25 years. So he understands what the values of the club are all about.
And just going back to Peter, he's obviously been around a lot of the same period as you, from the club that he came into to where they are now. Can you just sum up kind of the major differences and progress in that period?
Well, you've got 3 Champions League last 16s. You've got 13 league titles. A quadruple treble. You've got Barcelona. You've got Man United. You've got Lazio. You've got Van Dijk. You've got Wanyama. You've got Foster. You've got Tierney. You've got all these players who have come in, Dembele's, enhanced the club on the field and then left the club for a vast amount of money. And only in the last couple of days, we've taken a young player from Man City and sold him for a huge amount of money. So, when you put that into perspective and when you actually lay it down, it's phenomenal, the work that he's put into the club. And you look around the stadium, the walkways, it's absolutely beautiful. The stadium's in magnificent condition. So I wouldn't say, Dominic has big shoes to fill. I've seen the club in a lot worse stress than it is now.
Neil, can I ask you, how painful do you think it's been for Peter this season? You speak to him on a regular basis. Can you sum up that part, which will be gnawing away at him?
Yeah, I think everybody wanted to win the title this season, as is the case for every season. And whether we had won the league or not, he probably would have left at the end of the season anyway. Yeah, but he's sad about the way things have panned out this season, as we all are. But I think when he takes a bit of time and reflects on things, he can look back on it with a lot of pride.
What's the working relationship been like? Because you're a fairly fiery character. He's a man who doesn't like to lose too many battles. Do you think it's I can see you looking up to the heavens there. Can you remember some real rammies? What's he like as a person the next day after you've had those contentious moments?
Both of us just dust it off and get on with it. And, you need a thick skin to do either my job or Peter's job. And he's certainly developed that over the years as well. Like I said, he's very, very strong. Whether it be contract negotiations or any negotiations involving the club, he tries to get the best deal for the club at every point, and he's a brilliant negotiator, very shrewd, sort of forward-thinking CEO. I think he's been, one of the best in British football. And, he'd be a big miss. There's no question of
that. Can I ask you about the you mentioned there about all the qualities that he has. I just wonder about what you think. Do you think in time maybe some of these people, I know you can't speak for the fans, but you think in time they'll look back and realise that there's a huge hole now because he had such a strong influence domestically and on the ECB board in Europe? Yeah,
he was very influential on that, and he made a lot of good contacts along the way. So he was very well thought of, very well respected by other CEOs and other chairmen of huge clubs around Europe. And again, he worked the profile of the club, manipulated the profile of the club brilliantly among these clubs, which gave us a lot of kudos and gave the club a lot of respect as well at that level.
Neil, can I just ask you, there's only a few days left, obviously, of the transfer window. Where are you with that? There was some suggestions by some yesterday that Ben Davies had signed a pre-contract.
No, that's not the case. So when I have something for you, we'll let you know. I'm sure the club will let you know as soon as possible. But there's nothing done today or yesterday. So it's as you were at the minute.
Is he a player that you're hopeful of trying to secure in that pre-contract?
Well, I'm not going to. Again, I don't want to talk about speculation or players coming and going until they're actually signed on the dotted line. That's always been our way, and we'd like to keep it that way.
Ideally, what are you looking for before this transfer window shuts?
Yeah, well, obviously Jeremy's gone, and Chris Julian is out for a considerable length of time. So, either one or two replacements in that area.
Is it still likely to be loans that you're pursuing, Neil? Is that fair to say, given the current market?
Well, you just never know. If a deal comes up that we like, then there may be funds available to do that.
Just on one final point, Neil, how much does it mean to you, in his last period in charge, that Peter clearly is the man who stuck by you when the times were tough and you were up against it?
What do you mean stuck by me?
Well, people are clamouring for, as you mentioned, there seemed to be a bloodlust for your sacking.
Yeah, but you guys keep promoting it and keep talking about it and keep asking questions, and I keep answering the same questions over and over again. He's been very strong with me, Peter, and I've been very strong with him. It's not like an old pals act or anything like that. We feel the season hasn't gone the way we wanted it to, but in previous seasons they have. Sometimes that's football. It's not all down to individuals. It's about the collective. And Peter shouldn't bear the brunt of this season on his own. It's a collective responsibility, and we still have a lot to play for between now and the end of the season.
Just when you came back for your second spell, when after Hibs, presumably Peter was the man who spoke to you about that. Was it a no-brainer when he spoke to you about coming back?
Yeah, it was something that obviously I wanted to do, and it was a great opportunity and a great privilege. So, I was actually in Manchester, when the news came through that, Brendan had left, and, I got the call, would have come up and talked to Peter. So obviously I did, and, never really looked back. It's been fantastic.
Sure, more in terms of that relationship you had with Peter for him saying, right, come back.
Sorry?
More in terms of the relationship that you had with Peter, right, come back for a second spell.
Well, I think he knew what I could do and what I could bring to the club. I haven't done it previously, and I think he liked what I'd done at Hibs as well in terms of, promotion, getting them into Europe and playing a nice style of football. And it was a very difficult time for Peter and the club. The club was sort of up in the air a little bit, so it was important we came in and sort of consolidated everything and steadied everything down. So it was difficult, very pressurised position, and that hasn't changed from day one really to now.
And I was asking Scott Brown there, when you look at Celtic's set up now, you've got the training ground at Lennoxtown. When you came at Celtic, they would have been training at Barrowfield.
That's right, yeah. My first day of training, Rahman, was December the 9th or 10th, at Barrowfield, and I had to turn the floodlights on. It was that dark. Just cleared the snow off the pitch, and we trained on half a pitch. But to be fair, we had really good players to play with.
Mm-hmm. But that shows how much of a change setup there is under his watch now, yeah? It's
fantastic. Like I say, if you look at that, the facilities outside the stadium when you're walking up the Celtic way, it's absolutely magnificent, and it's all down to the forward thinking of the club in that respect. The stadium's, one of the best in Europe. Got a great training facility here, and we've got, a very good squad of players with a lot of assets in there, which has always been the case under Peter's watch.